It's gonna be this way.
Swim so free.
The Capitol Hill to
Soccer bopper.
All you fine people. Good morning, good evening, whenever it is you're listening to this. I hope that the time is good.
This is straight up classical music.
It really is. And by the way, welcome to another episode of Tune In Next Week. This is episode number 29.
We made it this far.
We did, and we have so much farther to go. And speaking of we, that would be me. This is John, your number one host, and my number two host is with me too. What's up, Brian?
I'm good, John. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. And I'm feeling very tranquil.
After that theme song, I'm feeling like I just want to sit out on a cool April afternoon on my porch and
in Nantucket,
sip some tea, maybe some lemonade even.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Arnold Palmer.
Oh, there we go. No, wait, you want to sip the golfer? That's disgusting, dude.
No, I didn't mean it that way.
Okay, so hey, welcome to episode number 29 of Tune In Next Week. And for those who are possibly a little bit unfamiliar with that opening theme song, we are doing the show called Wings.
I would say the theme song is totally unrecognizable because of the lack of appreciation, or the majority of the population, their lack of appreciation for classical music. I wouldn't, if you played that song to me and say, what TV show is this? I would not have guessed Wings, and maybe, yeah, I mean, this is just an unrecognizable TV show, a theme song, but the TV show itself is hugely popular.
Totally. And I've got some interesting little info about the theme song here. So, now, have you heard of a classical music composer named Franz Schubert?
The name sounds familiar. I was a musician in elementary, middle, high school, and I kind of went off on my own. I kind of went off on my own musically wise.
Okay.
In college and post-college.
Okay.
So the name is familiar. I've got a pretty solid musical education.
Okay.
So the name's familiar. I couldn't tell you who he is.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, he was most famous for his take on the piece called Ave Maria, which is a kind of a church song.
Oh shit, I love that song.
And there's a couple of versions of the song. His is one of the most popular. There's another one by a composer named Gounod, but his is actually, in my opinion, the better one and the more popular one. But he composed a piano sonata that was actually used as the theme song to Wings. His piano sonata, it's number 20 in the key of D. Sorry, no, it's number 20, D959. It's sort of a naming system of those classical pieces in A major, and it's the fourth movement, the Rondo Allegretto movement, but that piece is actually the theme song to Wings.
Oh, you lost me. You lost me there.
Well, hold on. I'm going to recap. So if you go on YouTube and you do a search for Franz Schubert, it's Schubert, piano sonata number 20 in A major, fourth movement, you'll actually hear people performing this in front of, crowds and everything. It's the theme song to Wings, but it's actually it was a classical music piece before it was a TV show theme.
That's very interesting.
I thought so too.
That's
me being the
really
one
cool.
Me being the one who is like Captain Theme Song, I have opinions on every theme song, but this one is a bona fide classical music piece.
Why was this chosen for the theme song to this show?
I have no idea. That's a great question because the show takes place in Nantucket. It's a really small area, small town, tiny airport. Little puddle jumper planes coming in there. And that piece does not necessarily make me think of Nantucket.
No.
You know, it's just a classical music piece. But now that obviously it's been used as the Wings theme song, it evokes that imagery. But if I had just heard that without having ever seen the show Wings, I would not have put the two together.
Huh.
But that may just be my interpretation of it.
No. I mean, I associate it with it now, but it's such a light and airy little piano piece, and I love it. But
don't forget the other instruments, like cello. We got a cello in there.
Yeah, but to me they're back. They fill out the piece, but to me the crown of the piece is the piano.
Absolutely. But before we jump too far into the episode, let's kind of cover some housekeeping here. So we are doing season 2, episode number 6 of Wings. And the name of the episode, and let me make sure I got this right. It's not the thought, it's the gift.
That counts.
Okay, it's not the thought that counts, it's the gift.
No, it's you got it right the first time. It's not the thought, it's the gift that counts.
Ah, okay.
So it's a reversal on the adage. It's not the gift, it's the thought that counts.
Right. Okay. So and that's an apt title for this episode because
yes,
I really enjoyed it. And this originally aired November 9th of 1990, and Wings aired from 1990 to 1997, 8 seasons over 7 years and 172 episodes.
Now, this episode, directed by... I'm very excited about this. This episode was directed by Noam Pitlick.
Who?
Noam Pitlick.
As in like Gnome?
No, Noam.
Oh, no, okay.
Pitlick. And he was a director / actor primarily known for directing shows like Barney Miller, Wings, and Mr. Belvedere.
Interesting.
And this show was created by David Angel, Peter Casey, and David Lee,
who also created
Frasier
and
Cheers and Wings.
Absolutely. So this show clearly came from a well-established production or creation team. And
for me, I didn't know that. And after finding that out, after watching this episode and doing research on it, I grew up watching Wings. Of course, I've seen Frasier and Cheers, and I love them. Cheers is my absolute favorite.
Same here.
But
no,
Frasier. You're a Frasier guy. You're a Frasier guy. I'm a Cheers guy.
Right.
However, I grew up watching and loving Wings.
Yep.
It was in syndication. It was played in repeat on the USA Network. And I spent many a day during summer vacation just watching rerun after rerun of Wings.
Yeah.
If you want to watch this show along with us, the platforms, it is available on our iTunes. You can rent episodes and seasons there. It's available for streaming on Hulu, and there are certain episodes available on Amazon Video, but this particular episode is only available on disc. So if you want to get this episode from Amazon, you can only order the DVDs, but the first season and a couple other episodes from other seasons are available on Amazon Video.
Cool.
So with that said, do we have some business to attend to?
Oh, we always do, absolutely. Tune in next week here. We could not do what it is that we do without the people over at JB Recording. That is the recording studio that we call home and where we prepare these lovely podcasts for you. So if you guys are looking for any kind of recording studio needs for podcast production, voice-over production, or anything like that, go over to www.jdrecording.com. Reach out to them there. They will definitely get you all taken care of. As far as connecting with us, the Tune In Next Week podcast, you can reach out to us. Our main base of operations on the web is going to be over at Tumblr. And our address there is tunein-nextweek.tumblr.com. We are also on Twitter at tunein_nextweek. We are also on Instagram, tunein_nextweek. We are also on Facebook. We will have a post on our website which has our link on Facebook momentarily. I'm just working out some kinks. But we are also joining the Big Blue F. So look for us on Facebook pretty soon. As far as listening to us, we are on iTunes. We're also on TuneIn, which is a great internet radio website, tunein.com. Do a search for us, Tune In Next Week. You can get us on YouTube. If you would subscribe to us, help us get up to 100 followers or more. We are also on Podbean, which is a great podcast directory, and so forth. We're on SoundCloud as well. So we're kind of all over the internet, so definitely connect with us. We would love to have you connecting with us. Let's jump into the episode here. Do you have a plot synopsis?
I do not.
All right. I've got the one off of IMDb.
I have that in front of me here.
Which basically goes a little something like this. Joe and Brian compete to see who got Helen the better birthday gift as a means to try and impress her.
So these two brothers, they're
sibling rivalry
Yeah.
at its best.
So Tim Daly and Steven Weber are Joe Montgomery Hackett and Brian Michael Hackett, respectively. So Steven Weber is Brian, Tim Daly is Joe.
Yep.
Joe is the older brother. Steven's the younger brother. Steven is really known as like the ladies' man, the player. But they both are vying for the attentions and the affections of the main female lead in this show, which is Helen Chappell,
Right.
played by Crystal Bernard.
Right.
So these guys, brothers, have grown up with Helen.
Right.
They're all from Nantucket. They've all grown up together and went to school here, lived here their whole lives. And
Now, wouldn't you think that if you grew up with somebody, you wouldn't necessarily be wanting to fuck them? You know, like, isn't it usually a case where, you know, like, you have a childhood friend, like, even if it's a female friend, you know, they're kind of like a sister to you? Isn't that usually how that goes?
sometimes. However, when you're children and you're just friends, your feelings definitely change once the puberty hits, and then you go out to college, you go out and you have different experiences.
Yeah.
But then you quote unquote come home and you sprout roots there. If you're all still in the same place, I mean, these guys have all been friends forever. So
Yeah.
now that they're here they're back and they're here permanently. It kind of makes sense. I mean, we have this history together. Why not take it to the next level? We know
Right.
each other all so well.
Yeah.
But Helen is very interesting throughout the seasons. She kind of plays. I wouldn't say it's me. It's kind of dickish what she does. She's kind of plays both brothers.
She teases them.
Kind of teases them, because she doesn't say no, it's not possible, but she does place them in the friend zone with tantalizing hints of there's a possible exit of the friend zone. Yeah.
But they never get there.
They never get there. No, they
But
never.
she likes to pretend with them.
To my knowledge, they've never get there. Now, I have seen a ton of episodes of a bunch of different seasons, but to my knowledge, neither of them has ever fucked their way out of the friend zone.
Right. Right. So, okay, let's jump right into the episode here, because
Yes.
this was a lot of fun. So we have a cold open with something that really has absolutely nothing to do with the episode, which I found a little bit funny. I didn't find this like all that hilarious. You know, it
It's-
certainly got a bigger laugh from the studio audience.
Yeah, it wasn't that funny, but I equate it to like a Cheers cold open or a Night Court cold open where
Right.
you have a throwaway joke that isn't necessarily related to the plot.
Right. And it's, you know, and now, but before we get into this, I just want to talk about the airport.
Okay,
Airport is so freaking small.
it is.
Now, I used to live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and that had a fairly small airport. You know, with like, I don't know, maybe 15 gates or something, or not even, or 10 gates. But that had a way more dimensionality in that airport than the Wings airport does, the Nantucket airport. I mean, like, what are there, 2 gates, and then there's like
One gate.
1 gate?
There's one gate, and that's actually a joke that Lowell made to Faye.
Yeah, I do remember that. But so, like, there's a little bar, you know, where people can sit at the bar with their backs to the gate.
When you say bar, you mean like a
Helen works.
diner counter.
Yeah, there's a diner counter where Helen works. People sit with their back to the gate. There's a little shop across the way. There's the gate entrance. That's it. It is
Yes.
a tiny. I mean, it's to say that it's a tiny airport is calling it big.
Yeah, and this is really just the airport to come onto and leave the small island that they are on.
Right, but I feel like I feel like the airport should be bigger. You know, it just feels way too small. It feels to me more like a set than an airport.
But the kinds of planes that Joe flies, they only warrant just a few passengers at a time.
True, but I can't believe that this is the only airstrip on Nantucket.
I would agree with you, and I don't want to say.
And maybe it is. For all I know, maybe it is.
I mean, as far as I know, this is in Nantucket, but this is and again, fuck fact checking.
Yeah, fuck fact checking.
I'm not going to fact check this until after we're done recording. So you can tweet at us if you want to bitch at my lack of knowledge.
Yeah, hashtag fuck fact check.
Despite the fact that I grew up watching the show, but this is in Nantucket, but this isn't Nantucket. This is like a smaller island that's kind of like that's kind of considered Nantucket, but it isn't Nantucket proper.
Or maybe this is maybe this is the civilian airfield on Nantucket, and then in Nantucket International Airport, maybe somewhere else.
I would,
maybe that might be more realistic.
I would agree with that, except for the international airport portion of it. I think
I just said that to make it sound impressive.
Well, but I would agree and disagree with you. I would say that there is like a larger airport, but not on this island. This is the island that you can maybe island hop to Nantucket, or you can go to the mainland USA.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense. But I still stand behind the fact that despite it being so small, the building on the outside with the establishing shots, that looks like it should be way bigger than what we see on the inside anyway.
I would agree with that.
But to me, it feels way more like a set than it does an airport. And interestingly enough, that this show was created by the same people that did Frasier. I found online, someone was sharing online that you can buy a print of the apartment layout of Frasier's apartment. You can actually buy it as a print and a poster to hang on your wall. But Frasier's apartment, though that was a set, was way more believable as a legitimate full-size apartment than this is as an airport.
We're gonna get off topic here, but you can also buy prints of Seinfeld's apartment, Carrie from Sex and the City,
like architectural schematic prints.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. But drawing the parallel here, Frasier's apartment looks more believable as a life-size, full-size apartment. I could see someone living in Frasier's apartment exactly as it is, life-size, one-to-one dimensions. To me, the Wings Airport is like a Micro Machines airport. It doesn't make sense to be that small in such a big building on the outside. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a disparity in the scale of the airport on the inside to what we see on the outside.
Right. So yeah, this airport looks from the inside. Now we're only seeing the diner. We're not seeing the interior of the gift shop. We're only seeing the hangar and the gate and the diner,
right,
and the outside of the gift shop.
And there's no room for like TSA.
Oh, this is a pre 9/11 world, John.
Well, yeah, but even still, where the hell security would have to be outside if we were going with the scale of what the inside of the building looks like? If that was the actual airport, security would have to be outside of the building.
This is a simpler time. You could smoke on these flights.
Okay, fine.
Well,
fuck fact checking.
Yeah. Well, I agree that the outside of the building looks larger than what we see on the inside.
We're
However,
this way too long.
we are. Yeah, but I'm cool with that. It's a short episode.
Of course.
But we've never seen the gift shop. We've never seen the kitchens.
Right.
We've never seen the loading dock. The hangar itself.
We've seen it a few times.
We've seen a few times, and I'm sure there's offices for the diner, the gift shop, and other things.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a TSA somewhere.
Yeah, while the set itself, with everything that we see, hangar, office, gates, terminal, diner,
Right.
while it looks to be the size of Frasier's apartment or maybe Carrie's apartment from Sex and the City,
Right.
I agree, it still looks smaller on
It looks more like a set.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So we have a cold open.
Yes. So
And the whole point of this cold opening is Faye, who I guess is a flight attendant, or she's the gate rep for the little airline, and she just says to Joe as he's walking through, she's like, "Oh, hey, I threw out all of our paper cups and replaced them with biodegradable ones to be environmentally conscious."
admirable.
Right. That's great. Or she said, I'm sorry, I just ruined the joke, but she replaced all the cups with biodegradable ones, and then Joe said, "Well, what did you do with the original ones?" And she says, "Oh, I just threw them away."
Yeah.
So like you just negated your little environmental contribution, but
Yeah.
the thought was there,
The thought, it's the thought that counts.
right? And that was the whole, that was
Oh
shit.
What?
wow.
That's it.
Okay, so that was the whole thing that happened. That's all that happened in the very beginning of the episode.
Oh,
and
man.
the whole time, I'm thinking that was pretty damn pointless.
It's
But now
not.
It's not, because we realize it's the thought that counts.
I wrote it down like, what the hell is she doing? This
Right.
makes no sense.
Right.
After you've just said, oh man.
You're witnessing Tune In Next Week history, people. So like we are realizing the intent of this scene long after.
Oh man.
That's amazing.
It's a whole 24 hours later.
Yeah.
Been thinking about this all damn day.
Yeah, so so it's the thought that counts, wanting to be more environmentally conscious, And then we roll the opening credits and we hear that lovely classical piano piece. So now we get back after the opening credits and we get to some home video footage, which I thought this was a little odd to kind of open up to this, but I liked kind of where they went with this.
Well, this was unusual because it's home movies and it's voiceover. It's home movies, but it's voiceover the whole time. It's Helen narrating what's going on in the home movie, as if we are in the same room as her watching along, and
Right.
she is kind of just describing the birthday party, describing her relationship with Joe and Brian, and how they're always at odds with each other, but they love each other, and
Right.
all that fun stuff.
Right. And then we get to everybody kind of sitting around.
But what's interesting is we see the home movie, and it's all grainy as your typical reel-to-reel home movie was.
Right.
But when it cuts away, it's Brian, Joe, and Helen all gathered around the diner counter at the airport.
Right.
So we're not at somebody's house. They're just reminiscing
While at work.
while at work, which is interesting and comes into play later. And it's
Right.
interesting because they're at work when later on this will come into play.
Right.
I just over-explained the shit out of that.
That's fine. Hey, man, that works. So they're all talking about how it's Helen's birthday, and Joe and Brian are the only people that have forgotten, and they didn't even realize that it was Helen's birthday. And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, didn't you know? We do a little something for her every year. We have a little surprise party for her every year." And what I really found clever is that while this is all happening, there's sort of like cuts. Well, actually, that's throughout the whole episode. There's cuts back to home movies that illustrate the same behavior from when they were
Yes.
kids.
I love that.
So it's almost like nothing changed
Brilliant.
in terms of like their relationship with each other. But to that, I posit the whole question I asked you in the very beginning. It's like if you started out as kids with this sort of like neighborhood friend who happened to be a girl, wouldn't that necessarily just mean you guys were friends growing up? Or but we kind of talked about Helen going in and out of the friend zone and all that stuff. So I guess that was kind of that kind of thing.
I mean, if we go back to the show Friends, one of I think it was Monica's advice to Joey is most great relationships start off as friends first.
That's true.
So I mean, these are relationships that are fertile for some fucking. That was weird. Sorry.
Edit. Cool. So now they're talking about what they did or didn't get Helen, and of course Joe and Brian get to talking.
Yes. One thing though, Faye, it reminds everybody that the party happens every year, and I kind of am kind of flabbergasted at Brian and Joe because they forget Helen's birthday, despite the fact that it happens every year.
Right.
They've gone to her birthday parties every year since they were kids, and now they're adults, and this almost seems like this is the first birthday since they've been back together on Nantucket, but this is like year 2 into the show.
Right, and they've talked about, I forget who, but somebody, I think Faye might even mention that every year they do the same thing. They all go in the hangar, and then somebody brings Helen in there, and they yell surprise, and they seem to get her every time.
Yeah, so I don't get how you guys have forgotten her birthday.
Yeah, how do you forget that? You know, especially if you do it all, you do the same thing every year. But anyway, so now so no one knows what they want to get her. So of course everybody scrambles and goes shopping off camera here. And we have a little conversation between Lowell and Faye. Lowell being the maintenance guy. And now with Lowell's mental capacity appearing to be what it is, we don't know very much about Lowell. But we know he's a little slow on the uptake.
Yes.
I would not want to fly in or out of that airport knowing he was the one repairing the planes.
He is my favorite.
I agree.
I love this guy.
He's very comedically fun. I enjoy his character, but I also will, regarding what I said before, I wouldn't feel comfortable flying on planes that I know he repaired. But then again, if he's entrusted by Joe and Brian, maybe he's just really socially awkward, but he's really good mechanic.
Yeah,
that could be the case.
Definitely a lovable lug that probably makes up for his shortcomings with his awesomeness with a wrench. Yeah.
So I'll give him that. But Lowell basically says to Faye, "Hey, can you look at my household budget? Because I run out of money on the third day of every month." Which sounds a lot like my budget, but I'm like, well, how bad can that be? So we find out what happens with that a little bit later on.
This is the joke where he says, you're good with numbers, Faye. I don't know how you do it. Flight 60, gate 1. Flight 42, gate 1. Flight 15, gate 1. Flight 88, gate 1.
He's like, how do you do it?
How do you get all these flights onto the same gate?
Is there really only one gate at
There's
that airport?
only one gate. Only one
sure?
gate. I'm confident. I'm very confident.
Okay, well, but
that there's
fuck
one
fact
gate.
checking. So
yeah, we're not gonna look into it.
We don't care.
I'm kidding.
But if you know anything about the Nantucket airport this takes place at, feel free to tweet us at @tunein_next week #fucked fact checking.
Well, we kind of get into this a little. We got into this a little earlier. There's only Faye. She's the only gate attendant.
Right.
And it's only Joe flying the plane.
I thought Brian's a pilot too.
I don't know what Brian's job is.
He's just there to woo women.
I know for sure Joe is a pilot.
Yes.
But I don't think Brian is a pilot either.
I think he is because I could have sworn in other seasons I've seen him and Joe talking about, I had this really rough flight. Oh, you had a rough flight. Imagine my flight, blah, blah. I could have sworn I've heard conversations like that between them in some other episode.
Very possible.
But anyway, we don't fact check.
No.
We don't need to. So anyway, now we are. So now we start to get into the sort of meat and potatoes of the show because Brian approaches Joe and says, "Hey, I just bought this portable cassette player for Helen, and I think she's gonna love it." And Joe's like, "Wow, how much did that cost you?" He says, "Oh, $65." So I'm like, "Okay, well that's got to be a pretty nice cassette player." And Brian says, "Well, how much did you spend?" Joe's like, "Oh, I only spent $10."
Yeah,
Which,
and
I mean, depending on what the gift was, it could be a really great thing for $10.
Yeah, it really could. The now not to go through the show beat by beat, but the back and forth of these guys is pretty goddamn ridiculous.
It's the word that I like to use is egregious.
Yes, and that's a great word for the results, the end result of this as well.
Yes.
So, I don't know what you wrote down, but I wrote down each gift and their dollar value.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
I did, yeah.
Okay. So
Well, I don't have the dollar values of everything, but I just have the different gifts and the different levels and everything. So
right. So
similar.
We have Joe's first gift, which we don't know what that gift is, but it's $10 in value.
Right.
Brian's response is a cassette player for $65.
Right. Then Joe kicks it up to the cheese warmer.
The fondue pot. Which is $85.
Right.
And then Brian kicks it up a notch with, is it the cordless?
Maker.
No, cordless phone.
Cordless phone, right.
Which is $100 value.
Right. Then I believe then Joe goes back with the perfume at 150.
No, the cappuccino maker at 150.
No, the perfume was 150. I think the cappuccino.
Oh, you're
maker,
right. You're right. Yes.
So the perfume was 150. Then Brian did the sweater.
For
for 200. Right. And so now it gets even more ridiculous because Joe decides to go for a CD player for $500.
And Brian gets a cappuccino maker to combat Joe's perfume.
Right.
But the thing about it is, and I'd like to stop this for a second. There's a nice scene right in the middle of this where Brian comes in. Was it Joe?
Joe comes in. When he's talking to Roy?
Yes. So Joe comes in and talks to Roy, who's my number 2 favorite character in this show.
Because he loves to start shit.
He loves to start shit. He loves to be sarcastic, and he's like I don't know, he's so mean. I love it.
And according to him,
I love jerking you guys around.
He loves jerking him around.
And that is a soundbite taken directly from this episode, by the way.
I love jerking you guys around.
He's probably become one of my favorite characters now. Brilliant choice of words, I have to say. And I know that it's the writers that put that in there, but, fuck that.
But it's the delivery.
It's the delivery.
I love jerking you guys around.
If you take that quote without context,
it's so dirty.
that could mean so many things.
Yeah.
It could mean that he's got a hard-on for the two brothers. I mean, let's face it. He could have said, I love messing with you guys. I love screwing with you guys. I love starting shit. What does he say?
I love jerking you guys around.
I love jerking you guys around. I bet they love it too.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Sorry. Anyway, so that scene is great, and that brought in one of my new favorite.
But how
things.
that plays out though is Joe comes in and says, "Hey, I've got this gift I'm trying to get for Helen. I'm not sure if it's good enough. What do you think of this perfume?" And then Roy says, "Oh, well, Brian's got something pretty awesome too."
He says, "Oh, that'll go good that'll go well with the Italian sweater he just spent $200 on."
Joe freaks out, leaves to go exchange the perfume for something more expensive. Then Brian comes in with a clearly superior gift.
Right.
But Roy,
I love jerking you guys around.
Jerking him around. Says, "Oh well, Joe's getting something. Joe's got some Italian perfume." Roy makes it sound like this perfume is superior to Brian's Italian sweater.
Right.
So if we're talking cost wise, Brian's gift is the winner, but Roy just stirring the pot.
Of course.
Jerking the guys around.
Right.
Sends Brian off in a panic to try to get something even better.
Right.
So it turns out, so now back to the back and forth. Now we've got Joe going out getting the CD player for $500, which automatically trumps Brian's cappuccino maker, which is slightly less in value.
Right. And then, of course, now the two of them get back in the same room with each other. Joe is like, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you what I got her. You're just going to have to deal with it.
Yep.
And at this point, where was Brian at? Was he at the cappuccino maker, or he was at something else?
He was at the cappuccino maker.
Okay, so obviously we know that Joe had spent more, but the two of them were like, you know what? We just need to call it a truce. This is ridiculous. Let's return these and just get her something small.
They pinky promise on returning their gifts, getting something small.
Right.
And
which that's going to go south.
I didn't think it would.
I didn't either.
I didn't think it would. This is an episode that I have seen before, but I didn't remember. I didn't remember the details, and I didn't remember the outcome.
Right.
But yeah, so that's so the brothers call a truce. They go to return their gifts and do their thing. So what happens next? Lowell comes in. We're back with Lowell. Lowell has taken Faye's advice. Faye's like looks over his financials and says, "Why are you renting tuxes every week?"
Yeah.
And Lowell's like, "I just rented one tux, but I've kept it, so they keep charging me this."
Hold on. There's a funny plot point here because Faye says, "What is this $112.50 a week to rent a tux?" And it turns out Lowell rented the tux because his grandfather wanted to be buried in a tux. So he buried his grandfather 6 feet under in the ground in a rental tux. And he's basically just been paying to rent it for a number of years. Which, like, the intention is good, you know, and his heart is in the right place. But man, dude, at what point do you realize maybe there's a little bit of a problem if you're spending $100 a week renting a tux that's being worn by a dead guy?
So Lowell's like, "All right, thanks, Faye. I'm gonna go fix this." So he goes to the rental tux place, says to him, "Hey, I rented this however long ago. I've been paying this. I've paid for this tux several times over. Give me my money back." So the place says, "All right, we'll give you store credit."
Right.
Which actually turns out that Lowell can rent tuxes with store credits.
Right.
So he didn't get any money back. He gets store credits. So what does he do?
He rents himself a tux
And comes to work
with the tux and his tool belt.
with his jumpsuit on underneath of the tux.
I loved that. I absolutely loved that.
So he got dressed for work, puts on his one piece
I don't think he was wearing his jumpsuit. I thought he was only wearing a tux and a tool belt around his waist.
so the
I could be wrong about that.
and this is a thing where it could go either way, but
Yeah.
because the top was so rumpled and wrinkled,
Yeah.
and I can't back this up, but I seem to remember seeing his jumpsuit peeking out underneath of the pants.
It could be. I'm not 100% sure. But,
The impression I got, and to me this lines up with Lowell as a character,
right.
he got dressed for work and was like, "Well, I got this tux, I might as well wear it."
Right.
And puts on the tux over his jumpsuit and then puts on his work belt and goes to work.
That to me sounds like a Lowell
It
move.
sounds like a Lowell move,
Yeah.
but I will go back. I will rewatch this.
Right.
I want to see if he if it's just rumpled for being rumpled, or
Right.
if he has a jumpsuit on underneath.
Right.
But that hilarity aside, we're gonna jump back ahead because we kind of combined some things here. We're at the hangar at this point. Am I right?
Right, yeah, we kind of jumped around order-wise, but that doesn't matter. So now we're at the surprise party, the supposed surprise party. And at this point, the two guys, Joe and Brian, have agreed to, you know, put their differences aside, buy smaller gifts for Helen, and just, you know, give her a nice, simple birthday party and call it a truce. So Joe gets Helen to come into the hangar. Of course, it's blatantly obvious that he's bringing her in there for some stupid reason. And Helen goes, "Oh, surprise. Oh, you got me again. Oh, dear."
She's good at faking surprise.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's obvious that she was faking surprise for us, the audience.
Right.
But her general faking her surprise was exceptional.
obvious.
It was obvious, but it
Yeah.
was good.
Yeah.
It was a good fake surprise.
It was, and especially her reactions to some of the gifts. Like, Lloyd gave her a rock. And I'm like, okay, so he probably just went outside, picked up a rock, and put a bow on it and gave it to her. But then he says the rock originally belonged to the Duke of Earl, and it was like he had some big story that went along with this rock. And I was like, okay, so it's a symbol of something.
It could go either way. I
Yeah.
could believe Lowell, but at the same time, I may not believe him. It may be he just went out, picked up a rock. And Roy even said, "You can get that out on the beach."
Right. But then Roy gave her a mug and said, "Oh, if you want the matching thermos, you can go back for a lube job," which I think goes right along with his
I love jerking you guys around.
jerking guys, getting lube jobs. I mean, this guy clearly has an agenda.
The mug itself was a New England Patriots
Okay.
mug.
Right. Okay, and then Faye gave her a St. Jude medal, which apparently St. Jude is the patron saint of lost causes.
Yes.
Which I was like, wow, that's cold. You know,
Yeah.
lost cause, and she's like, oh, she says something about her being a cellist or something.
Yeah, she wants to. Yeah, she's a musician, and Faye says, "Keep at it, but here's this.
Here's a medal for the patron saint of lost causes." I mean, that's a little fucked up.
Yeah.
And then we get to the gifts from Brian and Joe. So Brian's gift gets open, and of course, what did Brian get her?
The CD player
That Joe had originally purchased.
He plops it down on the table, knocks Joe's gift off the table. Helen opens it up and just squeals for joy. This is genuine excitement and happiness. She loves this CD player.
Yeah, she wanted one forever, and she had, she was like, oh, how did you know I wanted one? I wanted one for so long. She literally was acting like a kid that got a pony on her birthday.
Kissed him on the cheek and was like, hey, you want to come over tonight and help me pack it up, or help me set it up? He's like, fuck yeah, of course.
And you know what Brian's thinking the whole time?
I'm gonna get my dick wet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what he was looking for.
Of course. And Joe is seething. He is totally seething with rage right
He
now.
almost doesn't want to give her his gift. He's almost
Right.
like, you know what? My gift is don't open my gift. It's not really doesn't compare to anything else you've gotten.
And his gift was, what did you think of his gift?
It would be something I'd give my mom,
Yeah, it was a little duck on a piece of wood.
a seagull.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it was a tchotchke.
remind me what that word means.
A tchotchke. A tchotchke's like a little knickknack.
Like a little. Okay, yeah.
Like just a stupid little thing that you might buy if you go away someplace and you want to bring somebody back a little souvenir. You might buy something like that.
Yeah. I wouldn't get. I guess I wouldn't get friends. I don't know. That's a tough call because I
Yeah.
can see scenarios where I would give somebody a thing like that. But you know what? No, what? I'm going to make a definitive call here. You don't get somebody something like that as a birthday present, as a Christmas gift.
Right.
Yeah. Or hell, not even as an anniversary gift.
Right.
You'd give that somebody as like a
gag gift?
not even a gag gift. Well, yeah, you'd give it to him as a gag gift, but I was out, I saw this, I thought of you, I came back and got it for you. So it would be like a random gift. It wouldn't be
it wouldn't necessarily carry the same weight as a birthday
yes.
or exactly.
Yes, the St. Jude pendant, yes.
Right.
I've given somebody a St. Christopher's pendant.
Yeah.
As a birthday gift, but they were traveling, and St. Christopher is a patron saint of travel, so
Okay.
that made sense. But I would not give somebody a gift like that for any major event. It would be I was thinking of you kind of gift.
Yeah, just a low priority gift or
Yes,
a low level
perfectly
gift.
put. Yes.
Right. Okay, so he gets her this stupid thing, and she feigns excitement on it, and she's like, oh, thanks, and you could tell, the audience could tell she was faking it, but she faked it pretty well.
She did. Again, she is good at feigning excitement and enjoyment,
Right.
or happiness.
Right.
So while she's still gushing over the CD player, Joe is like, all right, Brian, I've got to have words with you. Come with me to the office. Brings him to the office, and they kind of go at it. They're about to come to blows, and then Helen comes in. Hey, guys, everything all right?
Yeah.
Brian, want to come over set up this thing tonight? I'll make you dinner. He's like, yeah, fuck yeah. She closes the door, and then they kind of square off again.
Yeah.
Brian is a piece of shit.
He is.
He's a piece of goddamn shit.
He really is. And then we find out his true colors here because he says, well, I was about to buy her a Garfield memo pad. And I mean, like, that would fit perfectly in line with his, seagull on a piece of driftwood, just some little tchotchke gift,
Yes.
But then he goes, but I got such a great deal on it because you returned the CD player.
Fuck you.
So,
Ugh.
I mean, not only did he get a deal on this, but he completely undermined their agreement, which I didn't like.
No, I hated the hell out of that. You make an agreement with somebody, especially your brother,
And especially about a girl, you know, like, I mean, you say like, hey, I'm not going to go after her if you're not going to go after her. Okay. You know, like it's like an honor thing, isn't it?
It is, but there's the whole all is fair in love and war kind of thing. But all is fair in love and war.
Right.
However, if you come to an agreement, you've come to a truce, then that should be honored.
Exactly.
There's no that it was very, very underhanded of him, and fuck that guy.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So now we're at the next day, and we're at the everybody's at the diner counter, and Helen is going on and on about the features of this CD player, which we find out it's a 10-disc changer. It has a remote control. It has shuffle on it, like all the common features we'd come to expect on such a piece of gear, you know. And she's just loving it. And Joe's trying to get a replacement cup of coffee, and she's like, "Oh yeah, okay, whatever." And she goes back to telling some random person about her, her CD player. She can't contain her excitement at all.
Yeah.
And Joe finally confronts her about it, and he's like, "Look, I'm sick of hearing about this damn CD player." You know, and they have a little argument, and he says,
argument?
It was a pretty big argument.
It was a big argument in front of patrons.
Yes.
In front of their other friends.
Right.
And what was great about this is that they intercut this argument with scenes of the home movie birthday party.
Right.
Where Joe said something about Helen, and it showed a picture of young Helen where she was getting cake thrown on her.
Yeah.
And then she said something bad to Joe, and it was then a intercut with a scene of young Joe getting cake thrown on him.
Right.
So it was very symbolic and well done, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliantly done. And so they just have a big argument, and finally ends up with Joe saying, "Well, you know what? Next year I'm not getting you anything." And she goes, "Oh no more driftwood."
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah, she kind of cut his heart out with that one.
She made a good point, though. She said, "I did not treat anybody any differently based on their gift."
Yeah, and she's right.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. But it shows that she's a lot more mature of a person than Brian and or Joe are. Because she's like, it doesn't matter to me the value of the gift. It's just the thought that counts.
Yeah, and actually, we didn't cover this. This was actually the next day after Brian had gone over to her house,
right,
and had set up the CD player for her, and he kind of made a comment that made it sound like that they slept together.
Right.
He said, "Oh, how'd that CD player sound?" She said, "Oh, it sounded great." And he made a comment that's like, "Oh, you're talking about the CD player. I thought you were talking about sounds coming from another room in the house," implying that they slept together. And that just riled Joe up, and that led to, yes. Fuck yeah, Helen. Sorry.
See, that's what Joe thought happened.
That's what Joe thought happened, and that precipitated that led to the fight between Joe and Helen.
Right, and it makes perfect sense based on how the two of them were talking yesterday, and how she wanted him to come over and help set it up. But it certainly lends itself to ending in an evening of passion.
Right. So as this argument was happening, and then it climaxed, and then it ended, this was all intercut with scenes of the home movie, and then it just ended with just shots of the home movie itself,
right,
which then faded out into Helen's dark apartment or house where she was watching the home movie on her own.
Right.
I thought it was brilliantly edited.
Yes.
It was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's a knock at the door, and hey, it's Joe.
It's Joe.
And she's like, "Dude, why are you still harping on this thing?" And he's like, "Hey, I really feel bad." So he decides to give her this thing, and he says it's a cameo?
She said it's a cameo, and
I don't even know what that is.
I didn't either, but the reveal of how it was worn made it seem like a brooch or
a brooch or like a pendant.
Yeah, something that was worn around the neck, but kind of underneath of a collared shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, almost like a bolo tie, but without the tie.
Right. And I found it kind of funny that Joe was like, "Oh, so we're friends again?" And she's like, "Well, we never were not friends." I mean, like, Joe obviously read way too much into this than Helen did.
He did, because he's into her.
Yeah.
More than she's into them.
Right.
And when I say them, I mean Brian and Joe.
Right. And I think the way that Joe handled this part, I thought was really, really great. So
very big of him.
So he said, look, I want to give you this. And she's like, oh, no, this looks so beautiful. It's expensive. I can't take it. He's like, no, it wasn't expensive at all. It just fell out of a Cracker Jack box. I just thought you might like to have it. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And he kind of leaves.
She specifically says it looks like an heirloom. And he says, no, It's not. It's not. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And this, I loved the ending of this.
Oh, yeah.
So she's like, okay, well, if you really want me to keep it, I'll keep it. Thanks very much. They're really cool. And, they're fine. And she said, good night. And he leaves. So she goes back to watching the show, watching the home movies. And she kind of looks really closely at one point, and she pauses the movie. She walks up, and what does she see?
She sees Joe's mom.
Joe and Brian's mom wearing that cameo or that piece of jewelry around her neck. And Helen holds it up next to the screen and compares it and sees it's the same thing. Right.
She turns around. She kind of holds it close to her, and she kind of smiles and looks off. Roll credits.
Right.
It's so
That's
nice.
such a great ending.
Oh, nice.
And in my mind, that was the better gift.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
Because I think at some point in the episode, I forget what she said, but she made some comment about how your mother always looked so beautiful, or like your mother always wore such nice things. I can't remember what she was said, but their mom was brought up at some point in the conversation.
I remember what you're talking about. I don't remember specifically where that line of dialogue came in.
Yeah, but I just thought that was so touching, and I think that is better than any CD player or anything like that, because it's like, here is a symbol of something from our childhood that we want you to have as a keepsake. And I thought that was so much more beautiful.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So highlights and lowlights, because that's the end of the episode. So highlights and lowlights. What were your Actually, I want to start with my highlight.
You start with your highlight, because what you're going to say will depend on what I say.
I see. Okay, so my highlight was Joe's gift in the end. Instead of it being something of super high value, it was something that had, a moral significance, and it was almost like it was a very the word that's coming to mind is respectful gift, but I feel like there's a better word for it. But it was a more symbolic gift.
I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, I don't know the word, but yes.
Than an expensive piece of equipment or a tchotchke or something like that. It had meaning to it. Mm-hmm. So that was my highlight. Joe I felt like he was a little petty during some of this part, but he really at the end he came through and he took the high road. Yeah,
it was such a beautiful gift. It was well done as well. He just didn't draw a lot of attention to it. He's like, this is a piece of jewelry. I know it seems personal,
it's just a little something.
Just a little something. Just take it, and the reveal. Oh, yeah. I totally agree with that highlight. Yeah. But my personal highlight was the editing, the intercutting of the home movie. I can't think of another episode that had this style. It was very stylistic.
Yeah.
It felt like film quality editing, because
it was really unique, because we haven't seen things like that in TV before.
No, this is something that's really saved for like stylistic kind of movies, or really high concept TV shows that have just come out much later.
Right.
But the fact that they opened with and then intercut throughout the episode, the home movie, the birthday party, was just it was flawless. It was flawless.
It was brilliant.
Because they chose scenes that spoke to each character as it was happening, and then during the argument with Brian, during the argument with Helen, they put in each cut of another portion of that same birthday party to kind of show the relationship of the characters, the relationship with each other. And then the fade into Helen's apartment at the end. Oh, it was so great.
So beautifully done.
I can't say anything. I can't say enough good things about this and how it was executed.
Nice. Excellent.
That was my highlight.
Very cool. So I've got a lowlight. My lowlight's pretty simple, and that is Brian's behavior. Brian's behavior was juvenile. It was pathetic. It was petty. I thought everything about how Brian handled everything was just awful. You know, he was trying to one-up Joe and...
Scumbag.
Yeah, he was a complete scumbag. And, you know, like, it annoyed me every step of the way, though it was comedic and it was funny. It was annoying because I was like, dude, you're just doing that to try to get laid, and you know you're not going to get laid because one thing we didn't mention, when Joe came to visit Helen later on that day, Joe kind of flat out admitted, he said, look, so, you know, I know that he got you that CD player. Did it get him anywhere? And Helen said, no, it got him right out the door.
Yeah.
You know, so Joe said, hey, you know, I know Brian bought you that CD player just to try to sleep with you. And Helen said, oh, no, he didn't sleep with me. That didn't happen. You know, and it's painfully obvious, you know, to us, the audience, that Brian's goal was just to sleep with her. But, I mean, I feel like as a brother, he should have respected his other older brother. You know, when they said, look, let's form a truce, he should have honored that. You know, so Brian's my low light. I was originally going to say Joe was being really petty, but Joe had every right to act the way he did for what Brian did.
Right. The both brothers are interested in Helen, but Brian, I would be interested to find out, or to know rather, if Brian finally gets with Helen and sleeps with her, what his next steps are. Would he sleep with her again and again and again? How would he treat her? I get the impression that Joe cares more about Helen for Helen,
yes,
but Brian is more interested in Helen for sexual gratification.
Objectifying her as a woman, yeah.
Yes. So I'm rooting for Joe. I mean, I like Brian because he's funny and all, but that was one of my low light options as well. Brian was fucking terrible.
He was
hated
an asshole.
that guy. Asshole. Do you have anything more to add to that?
No.
My particular low light is the Joe and Helen argument at the diner portion. As far as I know, this is Brian and Joe's business. This is their airport.
Right.
So this is their livelihood. The fact that the boss and one of his employees is arguing in front of the patrons, in front of their other friends,
that's a no-no.
That's a big no-no. Yeah. I understand that you may have differences, but these are things that are better. These conversations and confrontations are best had out of sight of paying customers.
In private.
In private. There were people sitting at that counter. There were people at tables around there. And I know Faye was at that gate listening.
Yep.
So my personal low light was, employee and employer conduct out on the floor.
Agree.
So,
yeah.
Other than that, it was hard to find a low light besides Scumbag Brian. It was hard to find a low light.
This was such a great episode.
It was a great episode.
So
it's a great show.
It really is. Definitely one I want to do again.
It's definitely revisit worthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to bring us to the end of our episode here. And speaking of revisit worthy, we would love for you guys to revisit us every week. You know, when we have new talk about new shows. If there's any shows you'd like us to do a review of, please by all means tweet us at TuneIn_next week or hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/TuneIn next week. And, let us know what you'd like to hear us do an episode of. Also, please do subscribe to us on YouTube so we can hopefully get a nice YouTube address instead of youtube.com/uppercase G, lowercase L, $439, whatever. Because that's just so memorable.
And I'll tell you what else that we don't talk enough about.
Yeah.
Give us 5 stars on iTunes. Rate and review us on iTunes.
Yes, please do. We would love you forever, seriously. And if you give us, I'll tell you what, you guys, if you give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, we will read your name on the next podcast that we record.
And if you're into anonymity, just use a pseudonym.
Sure. Well, we'll just read that. So if you want to be, Plucky McDuck, we will read the review from Plucky McDuck and give you props. But please help us out. We would really appreciate and love you. We definitely appreciate everybody that takes time to listen to us. And for all you guys, just like we say at the end of every episode,
tune in next week.
And the week after that.
And after that.
And after these messages.
We did it!
We did. We done. Oh, I should probably hit stop.